Did you know that blind women have a far lower rate of breast cancer? It's true. In Norway, in a study of over 15,000 ladies with partial or complete blindness, they found far lower rates of breast cancer. And what they established was actually a correlation, showing that those with complete blindness and therefore no perception to light actually had the lowest risk of breast cancer, a rate close to only 50% when compared to the general public. One theory that might explain this is the melatonin hypothesis. This is the theory that melatonin, an amazing hormone that's produced in the pineal gland in the brain, is protective when it comes to cancer. Melatonin has many functions, but what it's most famously understood for is to regulate our sleep-wake cycle. But in order to do that, it has to be able to react to the light we perceive. See, light, of course, during daytime inhibits our release of melatonin, and at night, as light dims, melatonin is increased. And the theory was that in ladies who had no perception to this light, they would have higher rates of melatonin, and it was this melatonin that had strong anti-cancer properties. And this was explored in further studies, and what they actually showed was in postmenopausal women, those with the highest rates of melatonin did in fact have the lowest rates of breast cancer. So what is it about melatonin that is protected? Well, it's thought to have crucial roles in inflammation. And researchers have shown that actually people who have had a pinealectomy, that is the removal of the pineal gland, actually age quicker. And so it may be that melatonin does have anti-aging properties. And the way it protects our cells, the mechanisms underlying this are becoming clearer. Firstly, it's thought to inhibit cellular proliferation. That is this uncontrollable cell growth, which is a hallmark of cancer cells, in that they divide uncontrollably, growing into a tumor. Secondly, it's thought to have very potent antioxidant properties. That is, it mops up the toxic metabolites that we naturally produce as part of our metabolism, but can be damaging to local tissues. We have to be able to safely remove these, and melatonin is thought to have a crucial role in that. Thirdly, it's been shown to reduce the amount of estrogen receptors on breast cancer cells, therefore limiting the amount of hormonal encouragement this tumor can undergo. And lastly, and perhaps most importantly when it comes to cancer, is it seems to inhibit metastasis. That is the spread of cancer, which is the thing that is most closely linked to mortality. The properties and capabilities of melatonin are complex, but the fact that it appears to work through this myriad of signaling cascades to protect cells shows that it could be a promising ingredient in both the prevention and the treatment of cancer or other inflammatory disorders. So melatonin is actually also produced in the gut and is thought to help regulate motility, but it's here that it may also have anti-inflammatory properties too. So in a study where they took in vitro cancer cells, colon cancer cells, and exposed them to inflammatory molecules, they then introduced melatonin and measured what the benefits, if any, there would be. And what they found was that melatonin appeared to be protective of these. They measured the amount of DNA breakage and the inflammatory molecules in the tissue, and they found that in the sample that was incubated with melatonin, it was significantly less inflamed and the DNA was more protected. And it did this at quantities very similar to what you might expect when you ingest it and absorb it as a dietary supplement. So it seems that melatonin may help modulate inflammation in the GI tract. So it might even have implications for inflammatory bowel disorders like Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. What about as a treatment? Well, there are a lot of studies to refer to, but one such study looked at combining melatonin with chemotherapeutic agents in the treatment of multi-drug resistant brain cancer cells. When used in combination, it created a synergistic effect and was more potently toxic to the brain cancer stem cells. These are the more stubborn cells that we find in cancers, and it's what makes cancer very difficult to treat. So melatonin does show promise as a strong protector of cells and perhaps also at helping eradicate damaged cells. All of this highlights the importance that if you're aiming for optimal health, you need to be looking at your sleep hygiene in order that you're getting good regular sleep so that you're not disrupting the supply of melatonin. Now sadly, a lot of people have very poor sleep quality, and really this is a whole topic of its own, but if I can quickly just address a couple of things as it relates to the inflammation and cancer. If you're enjoying this video or finding it even slightly interesting, then I would love to have you along for the journey. Please do subscribe, hit the ring ding ding bell, and it'll be the easiest thing you do today, but it might just benefit you for years to come. First thing is artificial or blue light. Industrialization and urbanization associated environmental factors are thought to be some of the most potent etiological, that is the causes of breast cancer. As a population, as we've moved from more agricultural, rural, naturalistic environments to cities, we are more constantly exposed to artificial light. Prolonged and repeated exposure to artificial light at night is one of the most profound changes in modern life. And emerging evidence has documented the association between exposure to this artificial light and the prevalence of breast cancer. As an illustration, a large epidemiological study showed that women exposed to prolonged night shift rotations had a moderate increase in breast cancer incidence. You can of course limit your exposure to this artificial light, or often known as blue light, by limiting your use of devices like TVs, laptops, mobile phones, either altogether or at least by changing in the settings, the blue light. And you should try and abstain from using these devices for at least an hour before bed. The next thing is to try and stick to a regular sleep routine. That is to go to bed and to get up at the same time, or as close as possible. And I know this is easier said than done, especially if you're working different shift patterns, if you've got young kids or pets that are keeping you up. It's not always easy, and I do appreciate that. But if you're going to bed at 9 p.m. one night and then 11 p.m. and then 1 a.m. the next night, or you're getting up at 6 a.m. then 8 a.m. then 1 p.m., your body cannot fall into this natural circadian rhythm. And we know that melatonin is delayed in its release in irregular sleepers. What all this evidence, and plenty more like it, points to is the body's amazing innate capacity that through action of our own hormones is to protect our cells and to heal from disease. Therefore, it emphasizes the importance of hormonal balance. And in order to achieve hormonal balance, you have to have balance in your life. Start with your sleep and see where you can build from there. Anyway, take care.